Support for Wrong About Everything comes from Minnesota's credit unions. Credit unions are locally based, member-owned financial cooperatives that return earnings to members through higher savings rates, lower loan rates, and reduced fees. Visit mncun.org for more information.
And welcome back to another episode of Wrong About Everything. I am Democratic strategist and the Puerto Rican heat, Javier Morillo, and I am wrong about everything. It's just me today. The Republicans are away again. I don't know why they didn't learn the first time, but it's the Javi show. So we're going to do a little bit of open discourse. We'll be taking some questions from our YouTube audience. We'll be talking about a whole bunch of things. And we have a special guest that I'll introduce in a bit. Because we'll be starting out the show talking about that weird meeting that Pete Hegseth had at the Pentagon with all the generals. But first, let's pay some bills. Welcome to the Minnesota Credit Union Network studio, as always, deep within the recesses of MBC Studios. Our sponsors include Minnesota Licensed Beverage Association. Since 1952, the Minnesota Licensed Beverage Association has been helping licensed beverage dealers in the state of Minnesota with information resources, educational programs, and government affairs services designed to promote and protect their business. All our member retailers understand that with MLBA, you are not alone. And Bradshaw and Bryant, their entire team of attorneys and staff is dedicated to providing the legal advice you need, combined with the service and personal attention you deserve. If you have questions about how they can assist you with a personal injury, wrongful death, or criminal defense matter, do not hesitate to call them. Consultations are free. You can call them at 800-770-7008 or contact them at minnesotapersonalinjury.com. So here we are. Yes, it's just Javi. So conservatives, so sorry if you're listening and don't want to hear me. You can skip this week's episode, or you can listen to some truth. But gonna kick us off. So I'm an Army brat. And so I've never been in the military myself, but I pay attention to military things, and I pay attention to things like military protocol because I grew up in that. And so yesterday was a bizarre day. And so I asked my friend Jacob Thomas, who's with Common Defense, to come to talk about this thing that happened yesterday. Welcome, Jacob.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, all right. So tell us a little about yourself and about Common Defense.
Yeah, so hey, everybody. My name's Jacob Thomas. I am an 8-year Air Force veteran, originally from the great state of Georgia, but I have lived here in the North Star State for 11 years now. I joined the military originally to see the world. Uncle Sam said I could see North Dakota. So I came here immediately after. Yeah, I was in Grand Forks for 5 years, helping with things up there.
You were there 5 years?
I was up there for 5 years. Kind of total was my station.
Okay.
Time there was a few other places around and about, but that was the bulk of my 8 years.
So literally not abroad at all?
No, that was so I was the whole reason I went to North Dakota. Grand Forks actually became and is still one of the main places where we have the Global Hawk, so a remotely piloted airframe. I was a network engineer in the military, so I made the internet work and kept it all secret and safe and all those fun things. Turns out if there's not a pilot in the plane, you kind of need the internet to make it fly. So they sent a bunch of us up there to help do that. And
so
that
you
kind of
flew
meant we
planes
didn't go.
Remotely?
I made sure that we had the network communications and kind of the command and control set up so that they could fly them. I did not have the eyesight for that.
Got it. And this was how long ago?
Served 2008 to 2016.
2008 to 2016. So when did Don't Ask, Don't Tell end?
It was 2012 was kind of 2011.
So you
was
were there during
2011 was the official kind of cut. I joined in 2008. If you can't tell by the little voice or the rings on my hands, I am a homosexual. So I served half of my time.
I had no idea.
Half of my time under Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I was still kind of struggling with my own identity there. I didn't really kind of believe that I was gay. Grew up very religious, very conservative. So I didn't really have took me a bit to figure it out myself. But I served under Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And then when it was repealed in 2012, I came out and was one of the few and one of the first out airmen on our base. And kind of that in and of itself catapulted me into doing organizing work overall. This was, June of 2012 was when I came out. Did not realize it was Pride Month. A little bit of irony in that. But by August,
you go to Pride that month?
I did not. Again,
Okay.
it was Grand Forks, North Dakota in 2012. They weren't really having Pride months
right.
at that point in time. They did eventually start doing them. But I actually, one of the ways that I think we originally
that's right. How we originally met. I didn't remember
we didn't
this.
know that we didn't know that we had met.
Yeah.
But came out in June of 2012. By August of that year, I was helping run volunteer phone banks out of a Lutheran church for the Vote No campaign, and kind of was hooked.
That was
on activism.
when the ban on same-sex marriage was on the ballot. Constitutional amendment to ban same-sex marriage was on the ballot here in Minnesota, and we did a bus tour. I worked on that campaign. We did a bus tour, and we went to Grand Forks. And I remember meeting you all and your team, because it was the most shell-shocked group of young people, because these poor kids had been calling into the Grand Forks area,
the northern Minnesota, East Grand Forks, Moorhead. All of like that kind of northern Minnesota Iron Range.
So not the friendliest territory on this question.
Not super friendly. And we were door knocking Saturdays and Sundays going out across the border.
I remember distinctly you guys talking about how you kept each other going, like when you'd have a hard phone call. I'm like, oh my, because if I can completely say I worked very hard on that campaign, but if it had depended on me doing what you were doing, we would not have won.
I appreciate that. I don't really know how much we were doing, but we were trying our little hardest.
You did a lot. All right, so tell us about Common Defense.
Yeah, so Common Defense, I'm our communications director there. We are the nation's largest grassroots organization of progressive veterans. So we work on a whole host of issues. One of the main things that we have been doing was fighting against Trump. So we started out in 2016 kind of as just a hashtag called Vets versus Hate, which kind of morphed into Vets Against Trump. And then since then, we've built out doing a whole lot of other work. So we were one of the main people to fight to end the war in Afghanistan, America's longest war, unjust occupation there. And so we created the End the Forever War campaign that really kind of pushed both elected officials and presidential candidates in 2020 to sign on and commit to getting us out of a war that we shouldn't have been in the first place, and ensure that happened. And so really good there. We impeached, as you can see, we were working with Rashida Tlaib and so many others to impeach Trump the first time over the Ukrainian call, and have done a lot of democracy work, voting rights work, and continue to organize veterans across the country. And that has morphed into trying to protect and save the democracy that we swore to defend. Yeah. So we've been doing that. When you're fighting fascists in Trump's America, business is booming. So it's very busy.
Can I ask a cisgendered male dumb question, probably?
Sure.
I'm just curious about, what was it like to serve in the military under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and that transition when it was repealed? What were the differences for a gay man in the military at that time versus afterward, I guess?
It was...
Because I assume it was hard to hide your voice.
Yeah, well, I would say...
Are you saying he has a gay voice?
Yes, I got that
no,
gay
he said
voice.
it. That's why I felt I had license.
No, so I think one of the biggest things, and this is what I think, we'll get to this, I think, shortly, but one of the things that, good old Pete over here doesn't get, who, by the way, I think if we haven't figured out now, it's very, apparently you can just go by a different name and everything's fine with it as long as it's Secretary of War and not Secretary of Defense.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why they have such a problem by calling people by their actual
Secretary of War
name.
is his gender affirming care.
Come on, Rafael Cruz. What are we doing here?
Yeah.
But so one thing that Hegseth and the people who are trying to erase so much of our military history don't understand is that actual people in the military don't care about these things, right? One of the big things that I remember hearing all throughout that debate, 2009, 2010, 2011, when we were going through the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, so many people, regardless of where they actually were at religiously or, kind of with their own like politics, said, I don't care if the person next to me is gay or straight. I just care that they shoot straight, right? Like that was one of the biggest refrains from that era where nobody really cared. It wasn't about, who you were, what your identity was, what color your hair was, or anything like that. We cared about getting the mission done and ensuring that we were all taking care of each other. So if you had somebody's back, it didn't matter who you went home to bed with at the end of the night. And I remember in that era, after Don't Ask, Don't Tell had been repealed, I was still not out yet. I was still kind of wrestling internally with my own identity. But I remember a sergeant, on my squad we were out doing something, and he was like, Sergeant Thomas, like you can come out, like Don't Ask, Don't Tell is repealed, like you can, it's okay.
Oh, wow.
And so I had all these people, and I'm like, fuck you, I'm not actually like, what did you talk? Because I wasn't ready to deal with it myself, but like it was clear that the people who knew me best, right? Like my squad, my unit, they knew.
Right.
And they were there to help and support and protect me, and help me along that journey, which I will forever be grateful for them for that. And in that space, I had actually kind of, very briefly, we'll get into it. But when I had come out with a YouTube video, mainly because I knew I couldn't kind of work through things over the phone with my mother. Like my parents, I was like, I won't be able to get all this out on a phone call. So let me make it a video and send it to them. And once I had done that, I had published it, made it public for everybody and shared it on my Facebook. And people had, kind of thought that the way that I had worded the thing, they thought that it was like a suicide post, which was not at all. But like that was like a concern that somebody else had in the unit. And so they called my commander, my first sergeant, and I basically had a wellness check from them being like, hey, like what's going on? And I explained it, and they were like, we got your back. And it was like one of the immediate things, it was like a Tuesday night, I think. And this first sergeant drives 20 minutes to my apartment, and he's like, cool, like we're glad like you're okay, like we support you. If anybody like gives you shit for this, come let us know, and we'll take care of it, because the law is that's not acceptable.
That was the thing that when the debates were happening about Don't Ask, Don't Tell, because I again, as an Army brat, because my father served in the military, and so I knew through his eyes, right, that in the military, like once the rule is the rule, it like y'all are rule followers, right?
We're really good at following
the whole
orders.
thing.
We're really good at following orders.
Kind of the whole point. And so, like, yeah, you can't be racist. So people stop being racist. It's like you start, So I figured that it would be less dramatic than people assumed it would.
And that's not to say there weren't issues. Sure, of course, right? Yeah. Like we had a time I actually worked very closely with the chaplains on base, and we had a kind of multicultural fair thing where all the different groups, were there. So the Asian Pacific Islander veterans, had like a little culture booth, and they were handing out lumpia, and we had, the kind of black kind of soldiers group on the base was doing a whole soul food thing. They had I was voluntold, which also the military loves to volunteer people to do things. But I was voluntold because I knew the EO folks and had done a lot of the sexual assault kind of harassment training work. They were like, oh, we should do an LGBT booth at the fair, and like you should run it. And so I wound up doing that. And we had the day before the chaplains say we can't actually do the kind of invocation at this because you're going to have the gay booth there. And so there definitely were tensions. We dealt with that. I went and respectfully yelled at a lieutenant colonel to be like, I don't care if you can't do this. You need to get other religious people to come do it because we've got community partners, we've got other people that could do these things. It's not acceptable for you to just say, oops, sorry, we're not going to be there at all.
Right.
Because there are airmen of faith across the sexual spectrum that should be doing this. So there were moments, but I would say you're totally right. By and large, so many people are taking that leadership and are taking that direction from leadership. So when you have people like Hegseth, who is disparaging women's service, who's disparaging trans soldiers and trans airmen, who's, attacking the people who have made the armed forces what they are today, is just absolutely reprehensible.
Yeah. So that's a good transition here because like that event you described, that sounds like Pete Hegseth's nightmare of a woke military.
I think it would probably scare him more than
right, because we were talking about this before we were on the air, right? That like the thing that I've been thinking about with all this, like with them firing generals that of color because the assumption is that they didn't deserve the rank that they got, the position that they got, that you're immediately suspect as DEI hire if you're either a woman or a person of color, is that I don't know if people listening to this understand where it is that the military recruits, but there's a reason why the military is more diverse than many workplaces, and the reason why the military is not woke. What the military is just dealing with racial and all kinds of diversity. My father joined the Army in 1961 because there were not many paths out of poverty in Puerto Rico at the time. And so he joined the military. He served in Vietnam twice. He did 2 tours of duty there. And more Puerto Ricans served per capita in Vietnam, died per capita in Vietnam than any state in the Union. And Puerto Ricans continued to serve disproportionately in the military because there's high poverty on the island, and because it is a way to escape. And that is also true in the U.S. And like when you think of like enlisted soldiers, like you come into the military and you have free healthcare, you have free housing, you have a really good education. Department of Defense schools are some of the best schools in the country, with very diverse schools, and by the way, no achievement gap. All of these things that's the military that I know, right? And so that's what Hegseth is calling the woke military.
100%. And I think the other kind of piece here too is that like we see in a lot of those communities too, some of the most patriotic communities.
Yeah.
Right? And that's not by accident either, right? There's so many people who join the military as immigrants who are literally not citizens at the time, and sign up, raise their right hand, just like I did, just like so many people did, to say, I will fight and I will potentially die for this country because I believe in it.
Yeah.
And then to now have this administration, this regime going and deporting veterans who served their country, who fought for this country, is absolutely disgraceful. And yeah, to your point, like there are just so many things that this administration, that Hegseth and so many of them are doing just to push people out of the military that they don't want.
Right.
And not because they are not capable of doing the job. They've proven that they can, right? You don't get to be in the military and stay that long by just, laxing off, right? Yeah. Like you're especially not getting to general or anything, but to say General Brown, who was fired the same night that they purged a bunch of judge advocate generals from the ranks in March, is all of it is disgraceful. And Hegseth then, spends millions of dollars.
And explain why it's millions of dollars.
So there's a lot of things about this, but he flew or required that we had about 800 or so generals and flag officers and admirals from all across the globe flying in. So just that amount of travel is absolutely ridiculous to try and figure out.
And that amount of like travel that is
short notice,
but also very sensitive, because these are military leaders, so you can't just put them on any old airplane.
Yeah. And some of them they can, but there's also plenty of spaces where it's like they are literally around the globe. Like
right.
This is not just like, oh, come down. You're down at, Langley, come up here to Quantico, a little,
right.
just a quick little jump away. They're bringing people from all across the globe to do this, leaving their AOR, their area of responsibility, without that oversight in this moment. So potential national security risks happening, harming our national security, and spending millions of dollars as we're going into a shutdown.
Yeah.
All so that he can get them there and just say no fats, no fems.
Yeah.
Not only could it have been an email, it didn't need to fucking happen. Right?
Yeah. That's his he made it into a Grindr profile. So there were two big things, so there was his speech, the sort of his TED talk about the warrior spirit. And then there was Trump saying, among other things, that the military needs to be deployed and basically, have target practice on U.S. citizens. The combination of those two things should terrify everyone, I think. Right, it's the announcement of a supposedly we're more warrior than ever, and as many of retired people who could speak who could speak freely have said these men and women don't need to be lectured about warriors. Yeah. Many of them have served in battle, unlike Pete Hegseth,
unlike Donald Trump, who dodged the draft.
Right.
Thanks to daddy's money.
But so tell me how your organization and the people in your organization, how you all took that in, how you reacted to what you're hearing in the field.
I think our political director, Naveed Shah, was quoted in The Guardian this morning in an article. And I think he kind of said it best with just, the words that I want to say right now are not fit for print. It was, absolutely disgraceful to see what happened there. Mainly because it is just so antithetical to what the military is supposed to be. Hegseth's talking about this warrior ethos, which is not actually, again, the people in that room had served for 20, 30 years. They don't need a lecture on warrior ethos or on the military. They've lived it their entire lives. And for him to then say, to go even further on the rules of engagement and kind of going on and on about lethality, while Trump is then following that up with make American cities training grounds for the military.
Yeah.
That is not at all what we should be doing, nor even flirting with as ideas for our military. We have a space where what should be happening, right, is that I would say that the best military that we have is when we go in and are democracy-loving, peace-loving people willing to do what is necessary to ensure that we are protected and that our country and our assets are protected and defended, not going in with revenge mentalities that lead to war crimes. Right. The type of rhetoric that Hegseth and Trump are pushing lead to war crimes. Right. That is what will happen. And our soldiers and our families are the ones who are going to take that heat.
Yeah. Yeah. The sort of declaring war on American, not just any American cities, but specifically American cities that are led
majority black and brown,
or that are led by Democrats, and I'd say it that way because that's literally the language he uses, that we're at war with an enemy within the enemy within our Democrats. Yeah, it seemed like a scene from another time, another country.
I think if we had gotten some leaked video from North Korea or, any other autocratic state, it would look like the video of Hegseth and Trump trying to push all of this unconstitutional garbage at our military leaders.
Yeah. I think, the one thing I took heart from, right, was that it was not, it would have been more terrifying even if it had any sense of it being kind of a rally. They were, the generals were listened quietly, politely.
There were a few moments where it's like, you can tell it was giving kind of the Jeb Bush of please clap. Because there were so many moments where like you could see Pete literally just being like, he's waiting for it.
The TED Talk definitely had applause lines in there. So.
And it's just silent. Yeah. Crickets.
Yeah.
We were talking about it earlier too. If people go find them online, there's some good kind of screen grabs of the audience of generals and just so many face palms and just very clearly just puzzled looks at each other during a lot of that. So yeah, I would say that it is heartening, right? I do think that so many of our men and women in uniform do believe in the Constitution, understand that we did not swear an oath to a political party or to an ideology or to a person or a president. Yeah. We swore it to the Constitution, and we said we will defend this from enemies foreign and domestic. And I think for so many of us and, at Common Defense, that is still true, right? Our service, our oath to this country didn't expire when we took off the uniform. And we truly believe that, which is why we are continuing to fight for an America and for a country that really does mean liberty and justice for all. Right? The promise of America is an America that treats everyone with dignity and respect, that treats everyone equally. And that is what we at Common Defense are fighting for as a community of veterans and military family members, to ensure that the promises of America are actually upheld, that our democracy is protected, and that authoritarians and wannabe dictators don't get to call the shots. It's we the people, not we the billionaires, not we the demagogues, not we the people who don't know how to put on orange foundation to match their skin. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm being texted by a friend, a military veteran who's listening, who thanks you for your work.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is an intense time. I mean, the thing that I worry about, right, is that yes, that group of those generals were there, right, but they've made it very clear that that what they expect is obedience. And so I'd worry about, who's going to be fired, who gets fired, who gets promoted. The sort of the no fats, no femmes also came along with a sort of like, and if you don't like it, then walk out the door.
It is very concerning. And I think we are going to see more of this, and we're going to continue to fight. And I hope that everybody in this country continues to resist the fascism and authoritarianism of this regime. But you're right. It's going to they are going to continue to push this, and because they want a military of yes men. They want a military that is going to do whatever they want, whether that's constitutional or not. Mm-hmm. We're already seeing, that happen. It's been over a month now since Trump has tried to, push National Guard troops into D.C., is threatening again to send them to Chicago, threatening to send them to Portland, even after being told that it was unconstitutional and illegal in L.A. And outside of that, we have masked, federal agents, the ICE and Border Patrol going out without real IDs, without showing their face and roughing up and harassing people. I was telling you about this before, but we had one of our members in Chicago at the Broadview, Illinois ICE detention facility who was protesting peacefully, exercising his First Amendment right on Saturday, and was shoved to the ground by Border Patrol and then picked up and arrested and spent the rest of the weekend in jail for doing exactly what is so fundamental to Americans: the right to protest, the right to peacefully assemble, and to push back and make our voices heard.
Yeah.
they are trying to silence dissent, and they are trying to make sure that there is no dissent within the military too, so that they can further use them in unconstitutional, undemocratic ways.
Yeah. Well, can't thank you enough for coming on. Tell folks where they can find out about Common Defense.
Yeah, so you can find us on pretty much any of the social platforms, Common Defense, at Common Defense, or commondefense.us. If you are a veteran, you can go to commondefense.us/join and get involved that way, or hit us up on any of the socials. And I'll say right now we are running a petition to specifically try and stop these outrageous overreaches from this regime. So you can go to, we have a whole piece on our socials, is probably the easiest way to find that one, but it's No War on Our Streets, trying to ensure that Congress actually does its damn job to hold this administration accountable and push for democratic norms to be established and put together. So yeah.
Yeah. And you can go on their page and donate. Little blue button at the top corner.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
Yeah, good guys. And
Help
then I don't know,
veteran
before you guys go, did you guys see this update on what Hegseth is doing next?
No, what's
Oh
that?
God.
He's leading a Lamaze class later today, and then he's also helping black people get over racism. He talks to generals about wars. It's kind of his thing. He just goes and mansplains
just
all
lectures,
over the place.
Just mansplains.
Yeah, he's mansplaining to generals.
I just go back to Fox News, please. He was never fit to lead, to be our Secretary of Defense. I refuse to actually call him Secretary of War. I also still call it the Gulf of Mexico.
To me, because I've heard people in the press say, Secretary, now known as the Secretary of War. It takes an act of Congress to change the name of a department that is created by an act of Congress. And so, there's a reason why at one time it was called the Department of War, and it was changed to the Department of Defense. Now, so we were sold supposedly no more. It's interesting, right? Because they said no more wars, no more wars, no more wars. That's supposed to be the MAGA sort of thing. No more wars. But then we have a War Department, and so they do like one war, and that is the war against our own people, as long as they're Democrats and as long as they're in cities that they don't like.
Yeah, I mean, I love this. Trump wants to pretend that he's the president of peace, right? He's really gunning for that Nobel Peace Prize, which he's never going to get. But he wants to be the president of peace, and yet is inciting and calling for war in our own cities. Yeah, pick a lane, dude. And a better foundation, but or at least this is the other problem. You need gays in your life to help you actually look good
and blend.
Clearly, somebody help this poor man. I think he really if he would have alternate timeline, been a drag queen, or actually done some college theater, I think we'd be in a much better place. Because I think that's really all this is. He got told no in a casting call somewhere in adolescence, and now is trying to rename the Kennedy Center and start his own little coups.
So they can have Phantom on all the time. Well, thanks, Jacob. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your time. Yeah. So, do you want to stick? I think it's past your.
Yes, I do. I have to run. We've got a whole lot of other things.
No worries.
Try and stop authoritarianism.
Yeah. All right. So. Well, thanks again for coming.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. So, as I said before, this is still the hobby show because the Republicans are away. Amy's getting married this weekend, so that's why Amy's away, and Brian is out on business. So if you have any questions, and we have our first one here from Aaron Zellhofer asking, do I have any thoughts on the St. Paul mayor's race? So St. Paul mayor's race, this is interesting because I was just talking about this on the way here with my husband because it just recently got competitive. State Representative Cowley Herr threw her hat in the ring. I will say this: where I see lawn signs for Cowley Herr, they're lawn signs. They're houses that I recognize. The reason I recognize them is because it's all the cranks. It's the people who brought us the trash wars. It's the people. It's the people for whom I coined our city's motto, our unofficial motto, but someday it will be the official motto. St. Paul is fine. It's fine. That seems to be her base. For judging from my social media, Republicans who live in St. Paul, there are a few of them, seem very excited about her race, about her candidacy. I'm, and not that Mayor Carter is perfect, and the city, of course, has, as any city has lots of issues to deal with. But I don't know what the race is about, to be honest. I don't know what so my thought is I will be voting for Melvin Carter to reelect Mayor Carter. I think he will win handily. And I'm just sort of baffled because people should be challenged. I'm not saying that he shouldn't have been challenged, but maybe throw your hat in the ring, sometime last year, so that there's enough time to actually build a case, because right now it's just kind of baffling. But that's my thought on the St. Paul mayor's race. And sorry, it's probably I don't have anything more technical to contribute in terms of where I think the votes will be coming from, things like that. But yeah.
What do you think about the Minneapolis race? Have you seen the don't rank?
Don't rank Frey.
Yeah, Frey signs. I thought that was unique. Like, I'd never seen that.
Yeah, there's a move. There was 4 years ago. There was a not super organized attempt at don't rank Frey. The three candidates that are not Jacob Frey, Dwayne Davis, Omar Fatah, and Jazz. I want to say Hampton, but I think I might have that name wrong, and I apologize to supporters. Someone will jump online and correct me. They are essentially kind of saying to each other's supporters, just vote for the three of us and don't rank Frey. It'll be interesting. I do think that the mayor has a challenge in that he comes in with about between 35 and 40% of the vote. And that's not 50. That's not enough. And we know from polling that he's very unpopular. He has a very low approval rating. I think the challenge for the challengers is, have any of them risen to have enough sort of name recognition and ability and strong enough campaigns to take him on. I think Senator Fatah is mounting a much more aggressive campaign than many expected him to. I think we've gotten past the sort of all the back and forth about the DFL convention, which is a waste of time, both the convention and the aftermath, the debate. I have said before, if we're doing since I'm naming who I'd be voting for. If I lived in Minneapolis, I would be voting for Dwayne Davis. I'd support Dwayne Davis. I've supported him financially, not a ton, but some. And I encourage everyone to look him up. He's a very serious candidate. He's a good person. He worked in Congress some years ago. Worked for a member of Congress, and he's a serious person with serious policy positions. And I think would make an excellent mayor. Yeah. So.
What do you think about, so this is just an outsider's perspective. I've not been paying close attention at all. I've met Jacob Frey before. I actually find him to be really nice in person and thoughtful, and he seems earnest. You know what I mean? Which I can't say I've felt that with every politician that I've met at all. Mm-hmm. I don't know that that's true. I've only met him a couple times. But one thing from an outsider's perspective that I feel like is if you think of the people running as some of our best and brightest, it gets more and more depressing for me. I feel like politics is dissuading, the state of it is dissuading good people from running almost. Do you think there's any truth to that or not?
like anyone who's listened to this podcast for a long time knows my feelings about Jacob Frey and his mayoralty.
Yes.
I think he's been a disaster. What has also been a disaster is the fact that progressives have not been able to, in Minneapolis, get their shit together enough to beat him.
Yes.
He should have been beaten. He was unpopular 4 years ago when he ran for re-election. But the candidates that jumped in too late. They didn't have the money, what have you. And I think if that campaign had gone on another month, we might have seen a different result. I thought for sure that the last 4 years that there'd be some heavyweights jumping in, that we'd be in a different place. I spent the better part of my adult political life pretty much staked out in Minneapolis. I slept in St. Paul, and I worked in Minneapolis. My office was in Minneapolis. Most of the members of SEIU 26, the largest number of them, live in Minneapolis, and I think there are a lot of great things that we did in that time in the city. And it has felt like in a short time that the mayor has undone a lot of good things, has certainly undone that. Just the city is so fraught and so tense, and he lives to humiliate the city council. The city council lives to humiliate him. Neither of those things is about governing. And I cannot for the life of me understand why we can't get more people in office in Minneapolis who are interested in actually governing.
This is going to sound probably super dumb, but what do you see the mayor's office as? Like, what is the power of that office? How can it make the greatest change in our city? Like, is there something that you see as a big bottleneck that it's not doing?
No, I think city government is one of the most important. I always had, I never want to run for office, but if I had been a person to run for office, running for mayor would be interesting because you actually have the most direct impact on people's lives at a municipal level, in my opinion. A lot of the higher up you go in government, the policy that you deal with, you don't necessarily see the impacts like on a day-to-day basis. At a city level, right, people notice when there's a pothole, people notice when their garbage is picked up or it's not picked up. And you can do things like you can move the city right toward having to be more sustainable. You could do really big changes. Minneapolis, in that time that I worked in Minneapolis, there were mayors that moved to the city to the organics recycling. They're sort of like Minneapolis is the envy of us in St. Paul, frankly, and in trash collection. We had to have a whole war just to decide to have organized trash collection, and y'all have not only had organized trash collection, but organics pickup and such for a long time. That all happened under previous administration. So there's a lot that can be done when you look at the issue of homelessness. There are encampments on both sides of the river. Each city deals with encampments in a radically different way. In St. Paul, the city of St. Paul and the deputy mayor of St. Paul has at times made it her business to ensure that not just city workers, but she herself goes into encampments with city workers. They learn the names of everyone who are there and try to figure out why people are there, why they are unhoused at this moment, because being unhoused is not. We tend to think of people say a homeless person as if that's a permanent state of being, and in many cases, right, it's a temporary thing. No, people they lost a lease, they lost a home, whatever, foreclosure, whatever it is, but they find out all these things about the individuals so that then they can find services for people. So for example, like veterans have access to housing services that other folks who are not veterans don't have access to. So they're able to channel those folks into housing. In Minneapolis, the reaction to encampments is a military one. They send in police to destroy the encampments. Now, I will say that there's a lot of activism in Minneapolis, where the assumption seems to be that that it's okay to have permanent encampments, and what they do is actually hand the mayor a gift, because people like. Look, I read a letter to the editor that was all about challenging the mayor on homeless encampments, but the whole thrust of this story was that children are finding needles on the ground and things like that, and that image of the encamp that actually hands the mayor a tool to say, see, that's what I'm saying is the encampments are dangerous and that's why they have to be taken down. Yes, dangerous things happen if crime is allowed to run rampant, but those aren't the only options. The only options are not simply like either a militarized response or letting encampments exist forever. There are third, fourth, fifth ways of doing things, and so that like in the city of St. Paul, city employees are instructed, encouraged to treat people and to speak of unhoused people as residents of the city, because you know what? They are literally residing in the city. And so that's a good example, like, to my mind, of like that there are different ways. I'm not saying that, again, St. Paul's not perfect. There's lots to improve, but that's a big example of something where I think that different approaches they're so radically different. I can't even believe they're in the same state, let alone just across, bordering each other. And you'd think that you'd think that they'd never heard in Minneapolis of a humane way of dealing with the issue of homelessness.
Well, I think you just named your first St. Paul mayoral run. You just made the slogan, St. Paul. There's lots to improve.
No, my slogan is what I said. St. Paul is fine. It's fine. That's how we react to change in St. Paul. Look, we don't need no parking meters. St. Paul's fine.
What are they actually hearing about? Because I got to say, the homeless encampment phenomenon is really puzzling to me. Just the scope of it. It seems to be everywhere. It seems to be like I haven't heard that there's less shelters. Maybe there are. I just don't know. Do we know what's behind this?
Well,
is homelessness spiked?
Yeah, like Minneapolis has a greater burden, and I'm not an expert in this area, so
I haven't found anyone who is.
But I know some folks that we
should talk to them.
Yeah,
I think
that's a good idea.
Really important. Like I think in any mayoral race, I think that is the topic that would move the needle for. Like I know for me, once I had kids, my perspective on that thing just changed completely. Like because you walk with your children and you have to explain things as you go by, and it's okay to do that. It's not like right. I can't be burdened with that. It's just when you see a lot of it and you just expose them to it's frightening to them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it makes your neighborhood feel unsafe.
Yeah.
And that's, so that's my super white bread privileged.
Well, and and the thing is, like, to me, there is an ethos by some in Minneapolis that encampments that is just a dignified way of people living, and I just don't think it's long-term sustainable. And the experience that others have had is that when you actually speak to people and you actually get to know them, right, that this is not people's preferred way of living.
Right.
And so like what we need are solutions that get people housing, right? This is related to housing crisis, right? Rent in both cities is extremely high. Mm-hmm. There are lots of complex reasons, and Minneapolis has a larger burden, just to be clear, than other cities in the metro area, so they have more to deal with. But my simple contention is that there's more than just just a militarized and police response to homelessness. That's not the way to do it.
Certainly, and for the record, I don't want them whatever busted up and moved on, heartlessly. But it's just something that should be addressed in a humane way, and it's
That's where I think most voters are. I've seen polling on this in Minneapolis, and I think people do not like the mayor's policy, but they also don't like the encampments, and so it seems ripe for smart policy people to come down and find a different path.
I feel like rent might be the other looming thing like that. With the way they're coming up. I don't know. Are there any talks about rent controls or anything like that?
Well, yes, the mayor vetoed in Minneapolis attempts at rent stabilization, and so
well, I no longer like Jake now.
But so should we close it up here?
Yeah, sure. Unless you want to talk about labor unions and AI.
Labor unions and AI.
We have some time. I'm just curious about the role of labor unions as you see. You've been a labor union organizer, so I know you're behind it. And at first, I kind of go, of course, I think they're deeply important, but I think they get abused and they get, there's both sides of the thing, right? Mm-hmm. You happen to do like a real noble one, so you're not a good guy to talk to. But do you see them as being more important going forward with this AI thing? Do they have the kind of strength where they can keep AI out of certain industries, like trucking, for instance?
So I'll say I don't know a ton on the issue. I think in general, unions often make a mistake of trying to stop things instead of looking at them as opportunities. I think we need to be looking at what kind of different jobs are created when things get automated, right? There was one of the things they said about fast food was well, if you get to $15 an hour, they're gonna automate things. But if you go to a McDonald's that is automated, there's still people making the burgers in the back, and there are jobs someone needs to fix those automated machines when they break down. Someone needs to attend to them to make sure. Someone needs to clean the store. So I think that talk of I've been trying to inform myself more on all this, but I think a lot of the talk that AI is going to just replace work everywhere is just not going to be. I think a lot of that is overblown, right? And in the trucking industry, you're saying like carless autonomous driving. Yeah. I mean, would you share a road with a
I certainly don't want to now, but it does seem inevitable. It does seem like, I don't know, in 5 years. I mean, this whole place, we're living in a endless, ceaseless, hellish joke of a world. So I guess I don't really care what really is happening anymore. But
this is the nihilism hour now.
That could possibly crash into me and end this shit.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. No. Any more nihilistic topics you want to bring up?
No, that's good. Now I'm sufficiently depressed.
All right, I'm not going to do any spanks or thanks because I've had the floor the whole time. But want to thank Jacob Thomas for joining us today, and thank those of you who joined us on YouTube and elsewhere. The Republicans. We'll see if they let me be alone again, because I'm just going to make this the hobby show every time. And with that, I am Democratic strategist and the Puerto Rican heat, Javier Murillo, and this is Wrong About Everything. Take us away, Gabe.
MBC, no relation to NBC.